Alright, Marras, how's it going? Welcome back to the Blue Army podcast. This is episode 45, and we're sorry for taking a little bit of a hiatus, but we're back with a vengeance because today we are trying something new. I am joined by Wills, and we're in the same room.
Yeah, I can literally see your face.
I can actually see, yeah, it's crazy. It's new, it's a different experience, and hopefully it'll be a better experience for you, the listeners, and more enjoyable for us to actually hang out a little bit more, man. I do want to quickly mention, though, audio will get better with time. We're in an empty room right now, pretty much, apart from the studio setup that we've got, and each other and a couple of chairs. So when I've got a bit of time, I'll be putting some wall hangings up and improving the sound quality of these recordings as quickly as possible. So bear with us if you think the audio is a little bit shaky. But Wills, we have traditions here on the Blue Army podcast, regardless of where we are in the world, don't we? So that means one thing, mate. That means it's time for... Is he having a laugh? I think he's trying to. It's the Blue Army podcast Joke of the Week. A little bit different, but pretty much the same. There we go. Right, the Joke of the Week this week has tickled me quite recently, shall we say. Here we go. What do you call an alligator in a vest?
Oh, I don't know. What do you call an alligator in a vest?
An investigator! We'll have to bear with Wills. He sounds like he's got a bit of a rough throat today. You alright, man?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. The Blue Army podcast, Joke of the Week, an absolute cracker this week. What do you call an alligator in a vest? An investigator. Woohoo! Get in. Right, should we do the rundown, mate?
Down then.
Right, so this is what we've got on today's show. Well, we've missed a lot across the last 14 days, so we will focus mainly on the good times. We will start off by talking about Carlisle's first league win since September the 4th. That was against Salford.
Wallsall.
What's that?
Wallsall.
No, the last time we won.
Sorry.
The last time we won. God, let me get through the rundown. The last time we won a league game since Wallsall. I'll start that bit again, Wills.
Sorry.
These new problems that occur when we're in the same room. We will start off by talking about Carlisle's first league win since September the 4th. That was against Salford. We beat Wallsall, just like Will said there, and another victory we missed, this time in the English Football League trophy. Kind of going to skip by the result a little bit, and I'm going to ask Wills what he would like to do with the money that we won in the competition. And finally, we'll discuss the most recent Carlisle game at the time of recording, because Carlisle are playing tonight. The FA Cup second round loss to League One Shrewsbury, as well as the controversy that came with it. So let's discuss something first, mate. Something a bit more fun. Let me tell you about our Xmas special.
Oh, yeah. Love to hear that.
That's it. We've got an Xmas special coming up, and I've managed to annoy enough ex-Carlisle United players to scare one of them out of the woodwork. And I'm only talking about it because I've got the recording in the bag already. So this is definitely going to happen. The episode's going to come out on December the 22nd. That'll be our Christmas special. And it is my pleasure to announce that ex-Carlisle United player joining me for an Xmas special interview is none other than 142-time appearing, double back-to-back promotion winning, and an English Football League trophy finalist, all just with the Blues, and probably somebody that Neil Warnock has on speed dial. It's none other than the big man in the middle, Christopher Anthony Billy, also known as Chris Billy.
We should sing the song. How many verses are there? About 12.
I don't think we can do that to Chris. I don't think we. Although to be fair, we really enjoyed.
He loves the song.
I think he was marked by most of his time at Carlisle United being shouted at, shoot, shoot, as soon as he scored that playoff semi-final goal. And we did talk about that playoff semi-final goal in the interview with Chris Billy, so lots to look forward to. We basically walked through what it was like for Chris to grow up in Huddersfield. He is a proper northern lad, just like you and me. And growing up sort of around the Huddersfield area, how he got discovered by Huddersfield, and then sort of being taken under the wing of the longest-serving manager in England, Neil Warnock.
Is he? That's he
the
must
most
be
amount of
about that.
professional games.
Mm.
I think so.
He's never really out of a job, is he?
Doesn't seem like it. He was most recently with Middlesbrough.
Yeah, because you get these long-serving managers like Steve Cottrell or such, and that could be out of work for decent periods. Sam Allardyce seems to be out of work more than he's in work. But no, Neil Warnock just always gets another job.
There does seem to always be a job round the corner for Neil Warnock. You're absolutely right, mate. But deservedly so?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have his stats to hand. Maybe, he was never kind of like known as a big winning lots of things manager, but it was usually brought in to get clubs out of trouble.
He's like a turnaround kind of manager, isn't he? Somebody that can bring in some stability. He's got a lot of names in his phone book on every level now. He's managed in all the divisions up and down. So as somebody, if you're in a difficult position, maybe underachieving in the season, if you could spiral down into a lower position, seems to be a bit of a rescue call. I think
the thing about Neil Warnock as well is that he will take any job. I think not that long ago when he was briefly out of work, he said that he would take a job in League Two if that was the only one offered.
Yeah, he never seems to feel. He just loves football. Comes across as one of those people that loves football. But yeah, going away from Neil Warnock because he never played for Carlisle. And Chris Billy, somebody who definitely did. Like I said, 142 appearances, proper northern lad. Really enjoyed my conversation with him. Really nice person. And hopefully we'll be able to give you guys a part 2 over the summer. We basically walked through the Huddersfield side of things into his... I think he was about 29 when he joined Carlisle. I never realised he was that old when he joined Carlisle.
Quite a bit as well.
170-something appearances for Bury. He was brought in by Neil Warnock. It's a bit of a running joke throughout the interview. I've got a little peppered in lines about Neil Warnock that Billy sometimes enjoyed and other times winced. But it's just a little insight on Chris Billy's character, and I really enjoyed it, mate. I really enjoyed the interview, and hopefully going forwards, we'll be able to have many more conversations with many more ex-Blues in the future, because I'm in the city now, and it should hopefully be easier to sort of track people down, and current players would be quite fun, don't you think?
Yeah, do current players do any kind of of this kind of thing?
See, the podcast that shall not be named, they did get a guest on last year, and I think it was like Jack Armour or Joe Riley. Right. I can't remember which one it was, but they did have a current player on there last year, and I think they've got their fingers in some supporters trust pies, and I think that that's how they kind of won a raffle or something and managed to get into do an interview or something like that.
I see. Yeah, so one.
I did mention it when I was at pre-season at Chorley and I wanted to speak to Chris Beach. Yeah. He had to sort of go away and make a phone call to actually see if he could talk to me. But he could. He was approved. Yeah. So, it might be hard, but if you could pick anyone from Carlisle United's current starting lineup to sit down with us in this room and have a conversation with him, who would you like to talk to?
Oh, let's see. I'd maybe like to hear what John Mellish has to say. He's been at Carlisle the longest.
That's a good shout. I like that. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. John Mellish smashed the crossbar against Lincoln recently, and the way he just he turned around and accepted it. It's kind of like he knows what his penalty style is, and sometimes it's going to come off the crossbar. Sometimes. Yeah. But thankfully, everyone else stepped up, or maybe Lincoln were a team that I don't know, not confident penalty takers, because Howard never had to make a save.
Yeah, I don't know you can really read too much into how teams perform at penalty shootouts unless they do excellently and never miss a penalty ever, or unless they going to penalty shootout and miss loads. But when you're talking about like the Carlisle Lincoln game, we missed one penalty, Lincoln missed two. Just happens.
Yeah, it seems to have been the way it went.
Yeah.
And I mean, once again, Carlisle turning over a higher league opposition in that tournament. So that's always something to sort of tick off the list, because it takes another one of those higher league teams out of the tournament. And in the next round, I think we've got Harrogate away, which is achievable as well, which will put us in the Northern semis. Or is that even still a thing, Northern semis?
Was it Harrogate or Tranmere, or is that now being played?
Oh, I just had a little look earlier. I'm pretty sure it said Harrogate away.
Yeah, because it was announced at the FA Cup game to the tension was palpable when they announced the draw of who would get in the third round of the Papa John's Trophy. It was like
last 16.
Last 16. It was like Harrogate or Ramsfield. You could feel the excitement around the ground.
The buzz of anticipation. Well, there's also another cup tournament that Carlisle are involved in, and in the final 8 of. It's the Cumberland Cup. They've got Cleator Moor in the next round, and normally it's just a team of like youth players that Carlisle put out for this, sprinkled in with a little bit of experience sometimes.
Yeah, they'll put out a favour pros in from time to time. I'm sure Dean Furman was in it last year at some point.
Yeah, I feel like he was kind of doing his coaching a little bit as well, and it was kind of like one of those things where it was like, go and look after the team a little bit, player coach kind of role, in the reserves sort of vibe, but
yeah.
I feel like Furman's somebody I miss personally. I don't know why. I don't know why I had such an attachment to Furman.
Honest.
Maybe it was.
Yeah.
Maybe it was that. Just ignore that phone call that's coming in. Right, so we'll plough on and we'll have a crack about Carlisle United's game against Wallsall. What's interesting, when I first look at the starting lineup, and we always do go through the starting lineup here before we discuss most games. Obviously, Howard in goal, Mellor, Feeney, MacDonald, Armour in the defence.
Yeah.
In midfield, Riley back from injury.
Yeah.
And then we've got Whelan Guy in the centre with Gibson out wide, Young and Fishburn up front. Now, you might be the same as me when you look at that lineup. There's one thing that sort of jumps out at you there, and it's the fact that Whelan's been brought into the midfield role, and Feeney and MacDonald are playing centre back, and then we've got no other centre back sort of on the bench apart from who we've got on loan. So, are we looking vulnerable at centre back, or are we looking vulnerable in the central defensive midfield position?
Yeah, I think it's more about the issues in central midfield, that Whelan's done good there on occasion. There's this, the Morecambe game in the Peter Trophy, and that had Whelan and Devine as the two centre midfields, and Chris Lumsden certainly commented on it a lot, that they both played very well there. And since then, I think we've kind of seen Keith Millen try and find the best centre midfield combination, with Devine having a go there, and Mellish has been there, but Whelan's now having a go, but he had to go with Devine as well without Callum Guy, and Callum Guy was suspended, I think, for the Morecambe game.
Callum Guy looked really good in this game, I thought. He was driving forward more on the ball rather than looking to play the ball.
Yeah, I mean, he looks better with a ball player next to him, which he doesn't get with John Mellish. And, maybe it's a kind of like a comfort of knowing that there's someone that he can pass to, or that, is not kind of expected to take it forward all on his own. And John Mellish just bombing ahead of him to see if he can get into the box.
Well, Mellish does sort of, at the moment, come across like more of an impact sub player, depending on what Millen's doing. And Millen seems to sort of like want to keep things steady for the sort of like 70 minutes, 80 minutes of the game, and then try and throw everything towards winning it in the last 10 minutes, but not leaving himself too vulnerable open. And Mellish does lend himself to being one of those players that could be impactful off the bench, but maybe, as we've seen with his red card a couple of weeks ago, that he's not necessarily the best defensive player.
Yeah.
And so he might find himself coming off the bench and being on the bench more and more as the season goes on. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, he's used to having to switch to new roles in his career, and I think he's one of them players as well that kind of just does. he looks really good in certain situations, like we were in last season, where there's not much asked of him in terms of midfield control. He's just win the ball, run, get in the box, make a nuisance of yourself. I know you kind of described Callum Guy a few episodes ago as being like a luxury player because of his sort of overall weakness, sort of like lack of strength. You could almost say that about Mellish. And, you know, not really what you think of as luxury, you know, not in terms of like silky skills, but in terms of like what he does, it takes something out of the team as well as puts something into the team. So you've got to have the kind of strength to cover what he takes out, or be in a situation where you need to just, if you are like just desperate for a goal.
I mean, it was a freakish thing that Mellish did last year, the amount of goals that he scored. You can't really expect him to pitch in with the same amount of goals again. And obviously most of those goals came in a flurry at the start of the season, and then obviously the stats don't read necessarily as good for him after the January period, but they don't read as good for anybody after the January period. For me, it was Riley, and more so evident Riley was the person keeping that midfield together last year. Yeah. Because he could compensate for Guy's shortcomings and he would compensate for Mellish's shortcomings. And when you play two in that midfield, either Guy looks vulnerable or Mellish looks vulnerable, or both of them do. Yeah. And that seems to be the way that it's gone. And Mellish also being somebody that I've mentioned being a bit of a loudmouth. Yeah. And Guy being the captain, with them two right next to each other in the midfield, the communication's going to be there throughout the whole game, and you could imagine Mellish snapping at Guy a few times at least if he's telling him what's what. Maybe. I've not noticed it on the pitch, don't get me wrong, but just because you don't snap on the pitch doesn't mean you don't say something in the changing room, or you know, it depends on the player's professionalism, I suppose. But yeah, the stats show that Wallsall have been the better side on the day. They had more possession, more shots on target. Wills, you said something in a private conversation with me quite recently about how Chris Millen seems to be able to set up the Carlisle team in a way that can drag the opposition team down to their level and then grind out a result with them. And I thought that was really interesting. Do you want to maybe give us a little bit more detail on that? Yeah,
so I mean, it started off almost as a bit of a joke comment that I made after, can't remember which game it was. I think one of the games that we drew. Or maybe I was even just referring to the fact that we beat Swindon earlier on in the season before they kind of like really hit their stride. I was kind of like on an internet forum and just kind of like joking with kind of other people there that like basically any points we get is kind of like we can drag, especially since Keith Millen come in, that we can drag teams down to our level. Because it seemed, because I was reading a lot of comments from fans of the opposition, because this kind of like general football forum that I post on, and the fans of the teams that we just got a draw against, I was like, or even that we'd played okay against but lost, we're like, that's the worst we've played all season. We were absolutely terrible that day. Can't remember who it was that we lost against before Wallsall. I don't know if it was the one before that, Exeter. It was specifically like Exeter fans, so like Exeter have generally played really well this season, beat us 2-1. That was after Mellish gets sent off, so we were kind of like holding them in the game, and the Exeter fans after that game just saying like, that's the worst. It's the worst we've played all season long. Yeah, so, I mean, because that's what we do to you.
I mean, when you mentioned it to me, you did say that you were on other people's forums, and it was just one of those sort of like reoccurring patterns that was happening when you were looking on those forums. You were seeing the answers from the opposition fans, and most of the replies from the opposition fans telling you that that's the worst they've played all season. And if we can drag mid-table teams down to our level and just draw and win, it's going to be, hopefully, fingers crossed, enough for us to stay in the division. Because I don't mean to sound all doom and gloomy, but right now I'd be happy for 16th to finish around 16th. I'd be quite happy for right now, and then obviously look to push on next year when maybe Millen can flex his contact book a little bit more.
I mean, he likes a nice style of football, it seems. So you'd think that if he can also, if he knows how to go out and get the sort of players that'll enhance that type of football. God, I was playing good football. Let's be optimistic about the man.
I'd love to see like a proper old school football manager move go down, and he brings in like a 16-year-old from his old Sweden. Was it Sweden he was at, or Bulgaria or something? I'd love to see him pull somebody in like a young Haaland. Or something along those lines, or even just anyone like a goalkeeper or something. But it'd just be one of those fantasy moves, wouldn't it? Where you can just sort of like see he's just going to take the best kid from their youth academy and throw him over into Cumbria. And I mean, that's what I do. I always drag somebody with me from my teams in Football Manager.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the Alessio Bugno effect. Do you remember? Yeah, exactly. Your reaction was just kind of like that. Who?
Was he a fullback?
Yeah, just kind of like plucked out of obscurity in like Serie C or something.
It seemed like, did you ever see that thing with the pretend footballer who ripped off like teams? He ended up getting a contract with a team in Ireland, a team here, because he had like fake documents from the Italian FA that he could just like, he was an actual professional footballer. So they bring him in on trial, and then he'd call up on the day of his trial and be like, listen, I've got another trial at another place, so like unless you give me a contract, then I'm not going to come. And obviously 100 teams, 99 teams out of 100 just like, tell him to bugger off. But there is that one team in 100 that'll give him the opportunity to play professional football. And so he's got like a couple of professional appearances for teams. I'm pretty sure he played for someone like...
Quickly found out.
Yeah, they quickly found out that when the ball went into his feet, the touch wasn't there. You know, I mean, he was somebody that just wanted to be...
Didn't Sam Allardyce once buy a player that was a bit like that? For like Bolton or someone? I'm sure I've got this kind of memory of a story.
I remember somebody coming on for half an hour.
Yeah.
Or even less, maybe.
A player that someone, I think, like Sam Allardyce or someone like that signed.
Was it Harry Redknapp at West Ham?
It could have been that, yeah. A player who... He got him onto the pitch and it's like, this guy's a fraud. And took him straight off.
He was like Ecuadorian international on his CV or something like that. I remember something. It was a big unit, the guy, wasn't he? Big unit.
I mean, I can't really remember.
I just remember him being on the touchline, standing next to a lino, coming on. Do you know what I mean? And I remember thinking, I mean, obviously compared to the lino.
If you know who we're talking about, get in touch.
Get in touch. Get in touch if you know who we're talking about. Say something. The goal, Carlisle's goal. Yeah. It was nice. It was a really nice goal. Carlisle's winning goal against Wallsall. It was in the 88th minute. There was a long free kick from Guy back on free kick duties. I feel like that's a good move, having him on the deep ones and having Clough in the box, probably, or Clough outside the box for those deep free kicks. But I think Clough's got a better chance of scoring free kicks. So you've got old Gibson even, and so those two guys in 25-yard, 30-yard range, they're my free kick takers. 45-yard range, get Callum Guy back on them because he's proved that he can put the ball in dangerous areas. And Millen's obviously seen that, and it was a nice set play move. I've watched it a few times, and as the ball goes in right towards the right hand side, it's right at the back of the box. It's probably just outside the box, in fact. And I feel like Rob McDonald made the run forward and then jagged himself backwards because the defender was nowhere near him when he took his touch. And nice little flick over the top from Rob McDonald, first time into the path of Abrahams, who volleyed very nonchalantly the ball into the back of the net and really enjoyed the celebration for the goal. It reminds me of Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank in the way that Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank just loved to score goals. You know what I mean? He always looked so excited. He didn't look like he had a clue what to do for his celebration. There was no sort of archer, there was no cartwheels. It was just sort of like running with like expressions.
I like that about him as well. In the moment that Tristan Abrahams scores, he is very likable. He kind of, he does seem like quite an emotional player. Anyway, he can kind of get into arguments as well. But if he goes on a run, it could be decent. The goal looked, it looked quite well worked. It looked like they maybe practiced it. I don't think that McDonald has instinctively sort of hit a nice weighted ball over to Abrahams, because I don't think that he's the kind of player that does instinctively do stuff like that. That seems like more something that they've kind of like worked on and that he's practiced.
Yeah. Yeah. Hang on. We just let's move the mic so you're speaking more into the side of it.
All right.
It's one of them mic sides.
Yeah.
You speak into the side. What did you just say? Sorry.
I was just saying that it was like a set piece move that they practiced. It didn't seem necessarily like Rob McDonald was a sort of player who would instinctively play this nice little weighted ball. It seems more like something that they've kind of worked on.
Yeah, no, it was. It definitely looked like it came from some kind of like training ground routine move. I'm not saying Millen's had long enough to give loads of these routines to the first team, but I mean, hopefully it's getting a bit closer to potentially having quite a nice number of weapons in our arsenal when it comes to set piece play, and that's obviously a good thing. Beach did have his sort of set piece places as well.
Yeah.
And that was always interesting. We are keeping a tally of man of the matches for ourselves, so we can send something into the club and hopefully someone will react to us and maybe send us a picture back on social media. But today, well, who are you saying got your man of the match against Wallsall?
Rob McDonald again. Must be, it feels like 2 or 3 that I've given him this season, but he's pretty competent at the back, and he gets a lot of stick because there have been 1 or 2 mistakes, but he seems to have cleaned up the mistakes. I think he made one a few games ago, but when you take them, when you take those out of it, he is a decent, competent centre back, and he's been showing that for the last few games. And also his role in getting the assist. Yeah,
I said Rod last week, I think, so that's definitely, and then I'm pretty sure the Mark Boyd agreed with me as well, so that'll put him on 3 now in 2 games, which is a good result for Rod if he wants to win. I'm sure he is. He'll be waiting for that, but yeah, he's moved himself up the leaderboard quite substantially, but for me, it has to be the captain. Callum Guy gets it for me. I feel like he had a good game. He played an important part. He was in the build up to the goal as well.
Yeah, you mentioned his performance earlier as well, didn't you?
Yeah. So for me, I'm going to go for Callum Guy. I think, and that's quite the turnaround for me because I've quite recently criticised the man. So there you go. That's how easy things can turn around for you here on the Blue Army podcast, and that's how fickle I could be as well. United could be accused of using the momentum of that late win to push on to victory against Lincoln. Carlisle took the lead through some fantastic play. Mempala finding Armour, who finished very well. What would you like to see in the future in terms of Impala's chances in the first team?
I'd like to see him get experience earlier in games, because although I think, did he come on as a sub? I don't know if he came on as a sub in the last game, or he did the Shrewsbury game.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Shrewsbury.
Yeah. It always seems to be a little bit too late for him to make much of an impact, but it does seem like he has that level of impact to make.
Who would you pair him with?
Oh, you mean up front?
Yeah, or would you pair him with anyone? Would you play him up front? Would you put him out wide?
Well, yeah, I might be thinking of putting him out wide.
Where? Which side?
Right.
And then Gibson on the left?
Well, this will be like maybe in the late state. Not quite the... I don't mean like bring him on as late as there have been, but, maybe like an early second half substitute rather than a sort of last 10 minute substitute. So, I mean, who he's paired with would probably be, if he's on the right, he might have come on for Riley. I think Riley's injured at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen the footwork?
I think so. I can't remember.
I mean, for me, I'm going to show it to you now anyway, just in case people are wondering what's happening right now. So yeah, here we go.
Okay.
Impala, great turn there. Yeah. Takes his man inside. Look at that pass. That's a really good finish from Armour as well. That's impressive, mate, for me. Like
that's Impala on the right as well.
That is Impala on the right. That's a good point. That's a really good point. Coming on the right, coming inside, using his left foot for the pass. So he's obviously comfortable with both feet.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'd like to see him play a little bit more football, starting games a little bit. And I don't think I've actually said that. I think I've only commented on social media about maybe him playing a
Joe
little
Riley
bit.
has picked up an injury though now, hasn't he? So
That's true, and he seems to be getting rushed back into the first team every time he's fit, and it does lead itself to another injury, and he's having a very stop-starty season, because at the start of the season he's probably arguably the most informed player we had at the time. But, you know, it might open the door for Impala, and maybe when Riley's fit to come back into the team, that'll push him more into the central again. But yeah, I'd like to see Impala get a bit more of a chance without losing Young and Fishburne. So that's a good shout, throwing him out on the right hand side. Lincoln did equalise in the game and took it to penalties in the end. Like we've already mentioned, I think just a little bit earlier on, it was more due down to the fact that Lincoln were missing penalties and Carlisle weren't. There was only Mellish that missed the penalty, I think, for Carlisle. Yeah. And so obviously we go through. There's a bit of money in the bank. Yeah. How would you like to see that money reinvested into the squad, into the infrastructure, into
the squad? It has to be the squad. Yeah. Because we're fighting a relegation battle. You don't really want to invest it in infrastructure that we might go down and it might just become a burden.
Yeah, does that mean it's going to be like a luxury loan, or?
I don't know. We'll see what Keith Millen's contacts are like. He might bring over that Swedish wonder kid.
Andreas Schweinsteigen. I'd love to see him. Give him the number 66 or the 88 or something like that. Proper embed them into the system. It would be great. But yeah, we're through to the next round. 20 grand in the bank. I would like to see a free sign-in, probably. Yeah. Somebody brought in on a free that maybe we wouldn't otherwise have been able to afford, and perhaps we're just all thinking a little bit pie in the sky because the board don't really seem to invest too much back into the squad on these occasions, and never really have. It's not like Carlisle have never had a cut run before and had a bit of money come their way, and the board haven't bothered to invest it. I don't want to necessarily open that can of worms too much, because there is a little bit to discuss about some fan protest news that were centred around the Shrewsbury game. Carlisle's next opponents in the Papa John's Trophy, I believe, are Harrogate Town. I believe. Carlisle played Shrewsbury in the FA Cup second round, and there was lots going on. But first, as we do when we discuss a game, it's the Carlisle United starting lineup. In goal, we had Howard, then we had Mellor, McDonald, Feeney and Armour at the back. Young in the midfield, apparently, with Guy and Whelan again. This time Dickinson playing out left, and Abrahams and Clough starting up front.
I don't think the BBC have got that formation right. I don't think Young wasn't on the wing.
No, you think it was a 4-3-3?
Yeah.
All right, okay, 4-3-3. Well, there was an early.
Clough was more on the wing.
Yeah.
Than Young.
Oh.
So it could be like, kind of. Yeah, 4-3-3.
4-3-3.
Clough wide.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, it was the Shrews that opened the scoring early on in the game. And, Carlisle obviously playing against higher league opposition maybe can't necessarily be too harsh on them here. We're just flicking through some of the highlights. That was Tristan Abraham's shot there that nearly fell to Dickinson early on in the game. That's a free kick for me against Armour. But there we have it. This is it. It's the 10th minute now. Ball down the left-hand side for Shrewsbury. Mellor trying to close down his man unsuccessfully, as Shrewsbury play the ball around quite nicely and find that gap on Mellor's side. Simple ball into the middle, and it's a good finish in the congested box.
Yeah, exactly. Congested box.
Can you really criticise anything about Carlisle's defending on that goal? Maybe Mellor leaving the chance for the box to be open there, for the ball to be played through into the crosser.
Overall, that kind of thing happens when nobody's going to challenge the player. Everyone's kind of a bit confused about their role, and you end up with everyone trying to defend the goal and no one actually going to the player.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it showed a better, higher quality opposition playing against a lower league team, and those gaps will appear in those games.
Yeah.
And it was nice football from Shrewsbury. Obviously, good enough of a team to be in League One. I think they beat Sunderland recently as well.
Yeah, I mean, their results are picked up because I think they've got a couple of wins prior to that match, but other than that, they were just above the relegation zone, and they've been on poor form before then.
Yeah. Carlisle then started to throw players forwards, and obviously as we went into the second half, we maybe got a bit more desperate, and were caught on the break by Shrewsbury, and former Carlisle man Ryan Bowman with the goal. It was a very good finish, in my opinion. Before that, Devine was brought on in the 27th minute, though. Can you clear up what was going on there when Devine came on for Mella?
Well, it wasn't clear to us. We were kind of like unsure why Mella was coming off. He hadn't had the best of starts, and we thought maybe it was purely because of that, or partly tactical, that something wasn't working and they were getting at us down that side. But I don't know if it's kind of been explained if he was carrying a knock or something.
Yeah, I feel like Millen set up his game plan, obviously knowing he could make 5 substitutions in the FA Cup, and definitely used them to his full advantage when he didn't necessarily see the game going in his direction. And then when Clough got a yellow card early on, and then Gibson came on for Clough, it wasn't necessarily a surprise because Clough didn't really look like he got started in the game, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair to say it was one of them games that he was quiet in.
Yeah. Well, that's Clough for you at the moment, isn't it? That just seems to be the way that Clough plays. He's very stop-starty. His goals only coming from really penalties and set pieces. Not a lot from open play at the moment.
Yeah.
And how long do you stick with him?
I don't know. I mean, maybe the change in formation didn't suit him. But I mean, if we're talking about sort of perhaps starting Mampala, then you're probably not starting Clough because someone has to drop out. Yeah.
I mean, so here we go. This is the goal here, with Carlisle throwing men forward. Eventually, we got caught on the break. Ryan Bowman, Fred through, good touch inside, and a nice finish.
Just a touch, yeah, it was just the touch that took the defender out of it.
Yeah, and then the finish, the chip over the goalkeeper as well.
Yeah.
It was a nice goal on the break. Obviously, how many times do we have to see players that we've let go in and around this level of football or higher, and just have let go, literally just let go of them? Like, we've not got any compensation for them or anything.
I don't know. I mean, I've often wondered what those stats are like with other clubs. Is this just something that every fan is saying of their club? Because amongst all the players out there that have made it at this level, there's always going to be a certain number of them that came through our youth team and were then released. And it could be that the amount of Carlisle players that are like that is just exactly about average.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the decision to release him was made a long time ago, and Ryan Bowman wasn't necessarily the same player then that he is now.
No, he definitely got bigger, got bulkier, did what he had to do to push forward in the professional game. Maybe somebody who did develop a little bit later on in his career, but still, Carlisle let him go at the age of 17, 18, and I'd seen him play in the school ground. He was a year below me at school or something. So when it's kind of not a friend, but somebody that you're rooting for. Yeah, you want to see them get that extra year contract and just sort of do you think they'd use that extra year to bulk up and then maybe get a couple of games towards the end of the season and then perhaps be able to push on more with the Blues? But the Blues don't really seem to be that good at handing out longer term deals to youth players.
Yeah, probably. And there are teams that are better at it. Teams like obviously Crewe, Exeter now. I think Colchester have got quite a good youth set up. So, and those teams are probably investing that extra year in players that other teams don't. That that one team might say, you get 1 year, see how it goes, whereas those teams that have got like better youth setups able to maybe give those players 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's more like I don't think that what's going on with Josh Dixon at the moment. I don't feel like he's going to get a contract extension because of the injuries. He's one of the few players that they've actually offered a contract to after 19. They very rarely offer a 19-year-old a contract or a 20-year-old a contract who's been with the youth squad.
You see him play though.
The connections don't seem good enough either. Like going out on loan to places like Lancaster and Workington. Like, why don't we have higher league places for them to go out on loan? Like, obviously Max Hunt went to Yeovil. Yeah, but Max Hunt went to Yeovil.
Oh yeah, but I mean Max Hunt was technically a senior player with us. So like the youth team players, when they go out on loan, when we send players out like say Charters maybe a couple of years ago would have done, maybe one of their young goalkeepers. At that age, you're sending them out to a team, but they still train with Carlisle.
Yeah,
and they and they're young lads, and they just have has to all be quite close to home for them if they're like playing for one team, but spending part of the week training with their parent club.
Yeah, but I'm talking more about like once they get past the youth stage, they've been offered the first professional terms, and they don't automatically just start like smashing it in the first team, and they're in and out the first team, maybe on the bench, maybe not even in the squad, so like your Lewis Bell types maybe. But yeah, exactly like Lewis Bell now, and like he's at the age of 19, and they don't offer those guys the contracts. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. They're the kind of guys they're the ones that they're letting go. Where you kind of like, if you do give them an extra year, if you do give them an extra 2 years, you can maybe get them a loan to a conference team and for 6 months, and they might be able to do a job for you. Yeah. But it's just sort of like, I don't think it would cost that much money either, because when you're releasing these guys, and if they go into a Workington or a part-time team. Yeah. They would obviously quite happily sign on the line for a couple of £100 to keep them in the professional game, and so I don't see it as a high risk, but I do see it as potentially high rewards, and that is frustrating. It is frustrating, and Bowman's one of those players that I would have liked to have seen us kept hold of.
Yeah, I mean, they show that kind of like initiative to do that from time to time. I think Patrick Bruff we kept on. Probably older than most of our youth team players that do eventually get released. We kind of like did he stay till he was like 22 or something? It seemed like Curl was quite fond of him and saw the potential in him, and therefore we'll kind of keep him on after a season when he might have made an impact but didn't make an impact. But Curl's like, well, I like the way you play. I'm still going to give you another year. I think, like, if you look at Josh Dixon, when I have seen him play, he looks really good, and he maybe is being recognised as a special talent, and he's had real issues with injury, but the club want to keep hold of him because maybe he's the player that they still feel has it in him.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Dixon is one of the players that, like you're saying, when you've seen him play, he's a good player, and you'd like to see him progress more, but because of the injuries, you're not going to get to see him progress more. So hopefully he keeps signing new contracts and gets offered new contracts, and we'll be able to see more of him in the future. Going back to the Shrewsbury game, though, I just want to point out again here, Impala with a nice touch inside and a chipped pass over to Gibson there, and obviously it's nice footwork from Gibson, great finish, left-footed
good
curler.
Assist.
Yeah, it was a really, really, really nice goal for Carlisle, and I just wanted to point out again Impala's contribution towards goals, and he's there in more of a central position, I suppose. I like what you said earlier about him playing out on the right. I feel like that's a really good option for Carlisle United going forward. Who would you give your man of the match to for Carlisle United versus Shrewsbury?
Based on what I've seen there, probably Gibson.
Gibson? Why Gibson?
It was decent at other times in the match as well. I mean, we were. I don't think we played especially well.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, like when you look at the statistics, we did pretty much have a good game. We had most of the possession. We had more than double the amount of shots. Shrewsbury were quite happy to just sort of, after the first goal in the 10 minutes, let us have the ball, and obviously we didn't do much with it. But we know we don't do that much with it, unfortunately. That seems to be our problem this season. There's a real lack of venom up front. But when you look at the stats, it is crazy. Like they read like we dominated the game.
I do, and it's weird. Do you know what? I did actually see that 5 shots on target thing after the game, and I remember saying to my friend at the time, I can only remember seeing 2 shots on target. One was the goal, and the other was a fairly easy catch for the Shrewsbury keeper. And I don't know, it's weird. It's weird looking at the stats like that, because the stats don't match how I was feeling at the game, and maybe that's just because it was cold and it was wet and the Shrewsbury fans were having a great time, and maybe that kind of like coloured my view on how we played. But the stats kind of shocked us a bit.
Yeah, I mean, me too. Because when you read like comments on social media and stuff, it doesn't look like Carlisle had that much of a good game. But but I mean, they're the stats. I obviously just wanted to make people aware of the fact that when you read the stats, it does look like we dominated the game. But obviously, on the day, it doesn't feel like it when you're a goal behind. And you just. The shots are a bit lackluster, but they might count as a shot on target. You know?
Yeah. I say I can't remember the other shots, so but obviously that happened. But I guess.
Oh. Obviously they happened. But I guess.
No, I was gonna say I guess I just didn't see them.
All right. Okay. I waited with anticipation for that, mate. I mean, there's only one more thing I want to touch on this week is the tennis ball throw-in protests. What was that like to see in person?
Embarrassing.
Yeah.
I mean, did you hear the Shrewsbury fans chanting before and after?
No.
The Shrewsbury fans had read about the proposed protest. So they started singing "Where's your tennis balls? Where's your tennis balls?" And then it was like, oh god. And then about 5 minutes after that, 5 tennis balls just come onto the pitch, just one after another. And then the Shrewsbury fans start singing, "What the fucking hell was that?" And you're just kind of and that's not embarrassment for the protest. You can view that whether that's embarrassment at the few number of people that took place in it, or whether the execution was embarrassing. That different people will have different views on that.
Yeah, it seems like the Carlisle United support is a little bit torn on the issue of who to blame and the board and stuff, because there wasn't a lot of commitment in the protest. There was a bit of shouting, but when I say that, I mean a couple of comments on social media, but I'm not saying they visibly gathered that much momentum.
No.
And I would have only have imagined about 50 people turning up to something that didn't necessarily get as high attention as they would have maybe thought it was going to get.
Yeah, I mean...
It takes a little bit more organisation maybe to gather more numbers. So maybe...
there needs to kind of be a bit less bickering, because I know, we all want to see kind of changes in the club. But sort of people who want to see those changes and want to make their voices heard find that differences in their own viewpoints are irreconcilable. For example, there are some people who defend Andrew Jenkins, but not Nixon or Pattinson, but they like Andrew Jenkins. He's been at the club a long time. He's the longest serving director. There's a lot of people that want to see him respected for that, and then at the other extreme, there's people who are kind of willing to send him personal abuse and stuff, and make abusive comments towards him. So there's kind of if you're at the end where you think that oh yeah, I want to see change, but I want to see Andrew Jenkins left out of all this. He's done nothing wrong. He's served the club well. Then you're not going to see eye to eye with someone who kind of thinks that he's a crook and that he's kind of robbing the club or something.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it's not all like levied at Andrew Jenkins' doorstep.
No, but I mean, Andrew Jenkins is something where people disagree on. Like, there's not that many people defending John Nixon, but there's still quite a lot of people with fondness for Jenkins.
Yeah. I mean, obviously his tenure at the club gives him that little bit more. He's been through good times and bad times, so obviously that gives him that.
And the tough.
And I know what, mate, I think that's a really good place to leave it this week, actually. I always like to leave it on a laugh, the Blue Army podcast. This has been episode 45, our first in-person episode. I quite enjoyed it. It's a different vibe, and like I said, bear with us for audio, etc., etc. I'm sure there's some kind of function on here, like normalise, that'll stabilise and make the levels a little bit more easier to listen to, but hopefully we've done a pretty good job. So Wills, thank you very much for joining me today here in the Blue Army podcast studio.
It's great to be here for the first time.
Maybe this was the pilot for season 2. Maybe this is the pilot for season 2. We'll find out next week on the Blue Army podcast. Wills, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow, and all those lovely things you do on social media. And don't forget, on the 22nd of December, mark your calendar right now, you'll get our Xmas special, a interview with former Carlisle United player Chris Billy. So that's enough from us this week, from the Blue Army podcast studio. For the first time ever. Ooh, I got chills when I said that, but I think that's because the heat is broken. Anyway, that's enough from us. Goodbye for now. Bye for now.
Bye for now.